Sarah then said, God has given me cause to laugh, and all who hear of it will laugh with me. In this episode, we will be looking at the birth of Isaac and the testing of Abraham. Uh, we have already seen how God is bringing Abraham and Sarah along, deepening their commitment to Him as He helps them to move along and to trust Him more and more in the daily vicissitudes, trials, and tribulations of their daily existence. So, God has promised Abraham and Sarah that they would have a child of their own. And we saw in chapter 18, these angelic messengers give them that clear message. Next year, at this time, Sarah will bear a child. And sure enough, in chapter 21, we are told that Sarah does bear a child. And this is what Genesis chapter 21 says. Sarah became pregnant and bore Abraham a son in his old age. By then, Abraham was 100 years old. Sarah was way past her menopause. At the set time that God had stated, next year at this time. Sarah then said, God has given me cause to laugh, and all who hear of it will laugh with me. Yet I have borne him a son in his old age. What is Sarah talking about when she says that she now has cause to laugh, and others, when they find out that she has born a son, has given, that they will laugh with her? Well, Sarah for years and years and years was unable to laugh because she was filled with grief and the stigma of being barren. It was very difficult, if not impossible, for her to trust God's promises made to Abraham and through him to her. And so, understandably, she convinced Abraham to have a child through her maidservant Hagar. And so you can see that Sarah has taken a very, very difficult, tumultuous journey in this relationship with God. But she is now at the point where she is one with God. She has accepted God's promises. She is now full of faith. And the result is that she is no longer burdened with hurt, with shame, with guilt, with anger. On the contrary, all of that has been erased. She is full of peace and joy, and so she can laugh. Not only that, she then becomes quite contagious in her joy so that anybody meeting her sees the transformation that has taken place in her from who she was for many, many years to who she now has become. You can already see as we are focusing on becoming great saints, on making how God makes great saints, how God does this little by little, in ways unimaginable. And so here is Sarah. God has done the impossible in her. From being barren and then being way past her menopause, God now has enabled her to conceive and bear a son. And so they are full of joy. See? And they are now exulting and enjoying this blessing, immense blessing that God has bestowed upon them. And then God is beginning to see that they are developing in their relationship with Him, in their covenant relationship with Him. And so now God uh, wants Abraham to be truly a covenant partner, someone who will say yes to God unquestioningly. And the reason why he can say yes to God unquestioningly is because whatever God decides, it will be a good decision, even though, humanly speaking, it's beyond human comprehension. So God tests Abraham both to purify him and to transform him into becoming the perfect covenant partner. And so God says, well, I have honored all the promises that I've made to you. You are very wealthy and you have a child from Sarah, and he is the child of my promise. And through him, you will have descendants as many as the stars in the heavens. And already in chapter 15, God told him that Abraham's descendants one day would be enslaved in a foreign land, meaning Egypt, where they would be in slavery for 400 years. Probably when God made that announcement to Abram, he could not comprehend what God was sharing with him, see. But God was already telling him, I'm already asking you to look into the future. Trust me completely. So here is now Abraham with his son Isaac, relishing this boy, see, thanking God. And then God says, Abraham, if you are to be a true covenant partner, then you are to say yes to me unquestioningly. And so I'm asking you to sacrifice your son Isaac. And Abraham says yes to God. Obviously, his heart must have had great difficulty accepting this command from God. But he also knew that God was faithful and that God would not do anything evil to him, even though it seemed as if this was an evil demand. He says yes to God. He's now a man of unflinching faith. And so he and Isaac take this journey where God points out to him one of the mountains surrounding Jerusalem. And he says, this is where I want you to sacrifice your son Isaac. And so Abraham takes this journey from Beersheba, which is near the Dead Sea, a journey of about maybe 30 to 50 miles. See? On this journey, Abraham at some point places the wood that would be used for the sacrifice on Isaac's back, and he asks him to carry the wood. Now, when a priest offered sacrifice, it was the priest who carried the wood as well as the sword or the knife and the fire. So here we see Isaac carrying the wood and Abraham carrying the fire and the knife. So clearly, both of them are represented as being priests. Both of them are going to participate in this sacrifice. Isaac doesn't know this, but he clearly is being asked by God through Abraham, to be priestly in this event. And so Isaac too is already an image and a prefiguration of Jesus, who will carry his cross to Calvary. So they come then to the place of sacrifice. And as they are approaching this place, Isaac asks his father an interesting question. We have all that it takes for the sacrifice, but there's one thing missing, the most important thing missing, and that is we don't have a ram to sacrifice. It must have been torture for Abraham to answer this question from his son, knowing that his son was not at all aware of what was about to transpire. And yet, Abraham was very loving and very honest when he said, God will provide. Even in that heart-rending moment, for us who are listening to this story or, say, watching it on a screen, we would be moved and at the same time amazed at Abraham's trust in God, that even though I can't compute this, it makes no sense to me, to my mind, but my heart tells me this is the right thing for me to do. And then he's ready now to sacrifice his son. He takes his knife, and just before he can plunge it into his son, God intervenes through the angel, and the angel says, "Stop, Abraham." And so God clearly was testing him, and he said, "Now I know that you are a true covenant partner, that you would do anything that I asked of you." And you can see God already is giving us intimations about how little by little, he's moving us toward Jesus, who will be the perfect sacrifice. And in this event, God is saying, Abraham, I wanted you to be a prefiguration. And as an earthly father, you would have great difficulty, but with my help, you would be willing to sacrifice your son. However, the real father who will sacrifice his son will be me. And I will sacrifice my son without hesitation. And the reason why I will do this with his total cooperation and obedience is because in the Blessed Trinity, when we discuss this matter, it's clear to us that, to me as father, that if I had to choose my son dying on the cross and through him bringing about the salvation and redemption of my sons and daughters so that they can become my very own sons and daughters, I would much rather sacrifice my son. And so in this event, God is basically giving us much hope and preparing us through the Old Testament all the way into the New Testament to see how Jesus then fulfills all these messianic promises, one of which we have just looked at in the testing of Abraham and in the sacrifice of Isaac. God will restore, has restored us as his image and likeness. It's a perfect decision that he made. And through Jesus, he has restored us, taking our broken humanity, our broken human nature, making it perfectible in the sacrament of baptism, strengthening it through the sacrament of confirmation, and through prayer, and through his grace, making us more and more generous and obedient to doing his will in the everyday circumstances of our lives, with the great help of our Blessed Mother, bringing us toward a perfected humanity in this earthly life of ours. So God keeps giving us great hope and asking us to never let our discouragement get in the way of our childlike faith and trust in Him. God bless you.
Making Great Saints is made possible by Our Lady's Healing Center and God's Embrace Ministries. For more information on Our Lady's Healing Center's healing program, visit OurLadiesHealingCenter.com. For ongoing formation and daily discipleship through God's Embrace Ministries, visit godsembrace.org.